Okay, we're back, y'all. Welcome to DCL Week 5. Sorry that it's been a little bit since last video on the channel, but it's just been some chaotic life stuff. Been trying to move in with my partner, and hopefully that's going to be something happening next month, knock on wood, but it's been really strenuous, so had to take a bit of a break from these post-coms, since obviously I'm kind of just doing them on the time that I have. But we got another game, DCL Week 5 against PZZ. This is the captain of the Nymble Nightclub, so after Skyhorse, the second captain of a team that we're facing this season. And he's a very scary opponent. He's been switching up between SV and SS throughout the entire tournament, so Gen 9 and Gen 8. He, I believe, won his other Sword and Shield game. So he's very good. He's 3-1, if I didn't mention that already. I'm 4-0, so we got some really good opponents. I mean, obviously Zombie last week was undefeated, and then our opponents' formids were also very strong opponents. So we just keep getting some good players to match up against, which is really exciting. And PZZ is a really nice guy. I really was able to meet him just a little bit the week before we played, not even knowing that we were going to be matched up against each other this week. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, yes, this is a game against the Nymble Nightclub. We are 2-2, as in the team is 2-2. Obviously, I'm 4-0 in my own individual games, but we really want to win this week to set us apart from the competition. If we can be 3-2 headed into these last 2 weeks, that's really great. It means we probably want to win one more, maybe like win and tie, or maybe, we want to make sure that we win this week. And this is the first game that's happening of the entire series. So no games have happened out of the 8 games so far. This is the first of 8. And it's a Sword and Shield game, obviously, because that's what I play. So it's going to be kind of a fatter team this week with the Sand. Obviously, we do have Tyranitar and EXCADRILL. That being said, it isn't necessarily like, how do I put it? It's not necessarily looking like a, super offensive way to go. Obviously, there's stuff like Celesteela on PZZ's side that's going to make it difficult for EXCADRILL to sweep, but EXCADRILL as a defensive mon is obviously really solid for Tapu Koko. It's one of the best Tapu Koko checks in the game, actually, so we have a really sort of fat leftover set, but it still has Swords Dance and Rapid Spin, where if I can wear down Celesteela enough, Earthquake, Rock Slide, is going to be, enough to kill it. And then hopefully I'll be able to break some other things with that set as well. So we're still, offensive drill for the first time. We didn't bring drill last week, obviously, because of Corviknight, but Celesteela is a bit more manageable because it doesn't have natural recovery outside of Leech Seed. There's things I can do, such as like taunt it with Tornadus, which I have on Tornadus this week, or just knock it off. Which I also have a Tornadus this week, so I guess I can just go into what the team is. We benched Eldegoss and Mienshao. Mienshao actually looked pretty decent this week, but ultimately just didn't have space for it. Eldegoss also pretty much looked decent, but again, I just think these 6 looks a bit better. And then as far as PZZ's team, he had Golurk, which I thought was quite possible to come. Ghost plus ground looks really scary. But I can understand why it didn't come, because hypothetically, if I bring something like a Citrus Berry Rotom, and it consumes the Citrus Berry, then it, hard walls the combination of Poltergeist and Earthquake. So I can imagine that in mocks, PZZ may have been having trouble with stuff like that if he was planning on ever bringing Golurk. And then the other mon he had was Venusaur. Venusaur is kind of a weird one, right? Because it's there's no sun, so it could be a defensive Venusaur, which is actually a really strong check to Rotom Wash. But obviously I have a Tornadus, I have a Latios, there's things kind of stopping that Venusaur as well, especially the fact that I have Sand, which is stops Synthesis. That being said, yeah, those are the things I got benched. I think the 5 that were very obvious were the 5 that you see on your screen minus Guzzlord, and then it was either going to be Guzzlord or it was going to be one of the other 2 that I mentioned. So it's cool to face Guzzlord. I'm a big Guzzlord believer, but I don't get to face it often. I get to use it a lot, but never face it very often. Biggest threat to our team actually is probably Lycanroc. Lycanroc kind of just does a ton of damage to the team. I have Doublade as a switch-in, which I'll talk about in a bit. But obviously it doesn't get recovery or anything like that, so it can only be a switch in for so long. Shell Smash Blastoise as well is pretty scary. I have to make sure I keep Rotom alive in order not to lose to it, or hold on to a Choice Scarfer, one of those 2 things. And then Celesteela and Necrozma are both very interesting. They could be defensive. I think Celesteela is more likely to be defensive than offensive, and I think Necrozma is more likely to be offensive than defensive. I think Necrozma is probably like a decently viable win condition with Dragon Dance or Calm Mind or something of that sort, especially since, you know, you can, especially if it's Dragon Dance, it can like Earthquake my Dark-type and Tyranitar, or run X-Scissor, which would hit, you know, Latias as well. And then Celesteela, I don't have like if he predicts Eldegoss not to come, which is a reasonable prediction, I don't really have a Leech Seed switch in. Whereas like an offensive Celesteela has to run a lot of coverage moves. Plus, you know, you want that leftovers Leech Seed to get residual recovery so you don't lose to EXCADRILL in the long term. Blastoise could be defensive, it could be Shell Smash, it could be, you know, defensive with Rapid Spin to get rid of rocks. Like there's a couple different options there. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking at. And then on our side, what we ended up bringing a Tornadus with Superpower, with U-Turn, Knockoff, and Taunt. Like I said, this is a really nice stop to Celesteela. We have some bulk and some speed where we can come in, even if we're taking Leech Seed, we can, like, you know, regen the damage that we lose with Leech Seed. And we can always threaten with Knockoff, which is going to remove Coco's Boots or something like that. Or if we really predict Celesteela to switch out, then we can click U-Turn. Taunt is really nice to run setup on things like, obviously, Shell Smash Blastoise or, you know, Necrozma or Celesteela. Have to be wary of Meteor Beam, but generally speaking, Taunt is really nice to stop setup or to stop, like I said, Leech Seed with the Celesteela. And then Superpower is there for the Lycanroc. Obviously, since I'm really fast but really bulky, I can take a Life Orb, Adamant, a Celerock from Lycanroc and kill back with Superpower. So that's the idea behind that. So no stab on Tornadus this week, but very interesting set nonetheless. Now, Rotom is very interesting because obviously in this matchup, what looked really good at first was just a really defensive Rotom, right? It's really good at taking on Celesteela. You want it to like take on Blastoise, whatever. But the issue is like Rotom's offensive matchup is insane here. Like it's absolutely freaking nuts. So I'm actually deciding to kind of lean into both. Obviously, we still want the defensive merit to take on stuff like the Blastoise, but I'm running max special attack Modest with some speed with the Assault Vest to make up for that lack of bulk, and I think that's really going to catch him off guard. Hydro Pump does like 80% to Tapu Koko, and like 60% to Necrozma. Like Hydro Pump from like Modest Rotom Wash is like insane calcs. So I wanted to make sure that I was really like doing more damage than mons like those two were recovering. And then the fact that I still have the AV allows me to still be like, you know, a deep, you know, strongly defensive mon that can be used for the Blastoise. Yeah. EXCADRILL, like I said, very fat SD, Rapid Spin, Rock Slide, Earthquake, Sand Rush, but I don't really plan on keeping Tyranitar around for too long. Tyranitar is kind of the dedicated lead, which you'll see in a bit, so I'm more relying on getting the speed boost with Rapid Spin rather than through Sand. And then Latias is Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf Trick is really nice to cripple the Celesteela. Obviously, it gets rid of its leftovers and it puts me in a situation where if it locks into anything else that's not Flamethrower, Drill can actually set up on it, which is absolutely perfect since it's like the mon that on paper walls EXCADRILL. And the funny thing is even if it clicks Leech Seed, since I have Rapid Spin, that's going to get rid of Celesteela's Leech Seed. And, you know, since I have leftovers, that damage is going to kind of neutralize out as well. So tricking the Celesteela a Choice Scarf means that it literally can only lock into a fire move. And obviously I have a Latias, I have a Rotom, like I can go into my other threats, especially my Rotom, which is my big offensive threat. If it locks into something else. Obviously, also, EXCADRILL is so bulky, like it's bulky enough to live 2 Flamethrowers from defensive Celesteela, or live 2 with the leftovers recovery. Okay, so yeah, Scarf with, it's Draco Meteor, Mystical Fire, Trick, and Healing Wish. Healing Wish is really nice because it allows me to Healing Wish back up. EXCADRILL or Rotom are the main 2 ones that I would want to heal up. Rotom is really nice because if I can take Chip on it to like damage some things early, but then I need to like restore its health to take on something like late game Blastoise or late game offensive Celesteela, that's really good. Or what it allows me to do is it allows me to Healing Wish the EXCADRILL back up, which is quite nice for, say, if I want to like Swords Dance and Rock Slide the Celesteela down, but I don't like get it that far down enough, and then I want to like preserve it and Healing Wish it later or something like that. Or there's a universe where I can Swords Dance, click Earthquake on a defensive Blastoise, and then it, you know, it does 60% to me with Scald, and then I switch out, Healing Wish it back, and now all of a sudden Blastoise can't switch in again because I've already done damage to it, and I can set up with EXCADRILL again, if that makes sense. So that's why Healing Wish is so good here. Tyranitar is a dedicated lead. It has Thunder Wave. So if it's lead Lycanroc, then we should be able to just Thunderwave it and then click, Body Press, which is our coverage for both Lycanroc and for Guzzlord. Otherwise, we're running Crunch on everything else. It means I can't really touch Coco, but I don't think Coco's staying in on me until I reveal all my moves, especially since he doesn't let him Stone Edge either, which on paper looks very free, like there's no Rock Resist, but I ended up going with, Body Press because it hits Guzzlord and it hits Lycanroc, and then I ended up going with Crunch Dark Pulse actually, because I wanted to Paraflinch with Thunderwave. So it's Rocks, Thunderwave, Dark Pulse, and Body Press. And then we're just max physically defensive Doublade. Originally I was max attack, max HP, and it was like, man, this, Life Orb Crunch does like 45%, this sucks. But with the Eviolite and going max defense in Doublade instead of max attack, Crunch is like 30% now, so like the damage difference is crazy. Anyway, I've yapped about this team long enough, and big announcement as well is I think after the season's over, I'll try and do a big live stream where I actually show you all the teams. Obviously, I just can't do that yet, so you'll see that soon. Okay, so we see lead Coco into a lead Tyranitar. I'm not particularly threatened by anything off this lead because I just don't think there's anything this Coco can go for that scares me, so I feel like rocks are quite free here. Just get up rocks. Obviously Blastoise exists, but it would force it to take damage early, which is going to be good for EXCADRILL. Just want to get my rocks up here turn 1, and he actually ends up revealing that he's Reflect. Now this Reflect on Coco is pretty much like the only scenario that makes sense for this Coco to stay in. Obviously if it doesn't have Reflect, then staying in on like potential Earthquake is pretty crazy. But also Coco can't go for something like a U-turn turn 1, because I revealed Weakness Policy last week. Like, you don't want to be taking like a +2 Stone Edge on a team that doesn't resist Stone Edge early in the game. Even though I don't have Stone Edge, he has to at least keep that in his head, right? So Reflect makes sense from this POV. It covers, Earthquake, it covers Stone Edge. It also covers, the rocks play where, you have a screen up and can be able to take a subsequent hit after I get the rocks up. So I go into my EXCADRILL here, and I go to my EXCADRILL here because I want to block a Volt Switch, if Volt Switch is what this Coco has. And I also do just want to cover it staying in and clicking in a light screen, right? Putting myself in an advantageous position where it's forced to switch, and maybe I can make a tactical double into Rotom expecting Celesteela. But he makes a switch out as well into Lycanroc Dusk. And this is a weird situation, right? Because I can attack this thing and do like maybe like 80%, and then it can click Coast Combat and kill me, and then we both die. But I think that exchange is much worse for me, even though I've identified Lycanroc as the biggest offensive threat to my team, because it means that I no longer have a Volt Switch immunity, and I just don't know enough about this Coco to feel comfortable losing my EXCADRILL very early. So it's too risky of a trade to make. Plus, obviously, Celesteela could just come in here. So I'm sort of thinking to myself, like, I'm not going to risk this. Yes, I outspeed in Sand Rush, and yes, even though Reflect is up, I do a ton of damage to this Lycanroc, but it's just not worth it. I'm going to switch into my dedicated answer in Doublade, and he's going to go into Celesteela. Now, crucial information about this Celesteela here. I would say in about 80% of mocks that I had, Celesteela was leftovers with Leech Seed. Which makes sense, right? Because my grass type is Eldegoss, and that's not really going to come in very often against Celesteela. I think offensive sets can have a hard time against my team. But him not revealing leftovers is starting to make me sort of question some things. Is he Meteor Beam? Is he, Weakness Policy? Is he some kind of Resist Berry for Rotom? Like, there's so many different things entering my mind. It makes me think this is a more offensive-oriented Celesteela, which, I did a couple mocks against, but it was much less frequent. So I need to bear that in mind through the course of the game. Not revealing leftovers is absolutely massive, but I do just switch into my Rotom Wash for this reason. I don't think there's anything that the Celesteela is going to click. Like, I doubt it's going to click like Giga Drain on the Doublade. And even if it does, Rotom Wash takes not a ton of damage from it. And Guzzlord comes in on the Doublade, which makes sense. It's a very safe play. Sacred Sword isn't going to do a bunch with Reflect Up, and it covers the Rotom coming in. So it's a very smart double on PZZ's part, but we've both been like tripling for the first like 3 turns of this game, so we need to actually start doing damage. And I do the first damaging move of the game on turn 5 by clicking Volt Switch against Guzzlord here. I go into Tornadus, he goes for knockoff, and it crits me. Now this crit, obviously, even though I have Regenerator, is a little annoying because it's gonna, potentially make me much lower in future hits, and that could affect things, so that damage isn't great, but at the very least, something interesting that happens here is Reflect goes. So this is not Light Clay Coco, and it has to leave me thinking, is this a Resist Berry Coco? Is it something else? I don't know. I think I'm going to click U-turn here, and the reason I'm going to click U-turn here is because obviously Tyranitar has Body Press, but Body Press only kills the Guzzlord if it's like below 50%. So I'm just going to click U-turn, And the reason I'm prefacing that with this is I'm pretty sure this Guzzlord is weakness policy, because the two items I was expecting on Guzzlord, besides potential weakness policy, were Leftovers and Assault Vest. Leftovers weren't revealed, and Assault Vest wasn't revealed with the damage that Rotom did with Volt Switch. So I'm going to click U-turn. I fully acknowledge that I'm probably popping weakness policy right here, but I'm planning to go into my Tyranitar and surprise this Guzzlord with Body Press. And I'm not worried about going into Tyranitar because obviously I think this Guzzlord's probably either clicking Knockoff again or clicking like a Dragon move, since I don't have a Fairy type on my team. But I don't really mind that because my Tyranitar is like max Fizz Def, so I should be able to take even a +2 hit. Now Guzzlord goes for Heavy Slam here, which is a very good play because it covers the Torn staying in, it covers me going into Tyranitar as well, it even covers, like, I guess a weird play into something like a Latias, although that doesn't really make a ton of sense, I would never make that play. So I guess it just covers the T-Tar and it covers the Torn staying in, so this is like one of the best moves that Guzzlord could have hit me with, but thankfully since I'm so Fizz Def, I'm absolutely fine. Now, if he thinks I'm Stone Edge, he stays in and thinks that he lives this and tries to trade 1 for 1. I am not expecting him to expect Body Press. I'm going to click Body Press here and take out the Guzzlord. So nice little surprise move slot on my Tyranitar here as he goes into his Tapu Koko. Now I obviously have a very free switch into Excadrill here because it's like the best checked Koko that you can possibly get. He's going to go for Reflect, and I'm going to switch out into Torn. Now, you're about to see what move he clicks here. Switching out into Torn, I did for a couple reasons. One is that I think the Celesteela switch in is so obvious, and I really want to knock off the Celesteela's item. There's too much of this like weird like risk factor of like, what is this Celesteela's item? It feels like it's going to become a guessing game, which it does later on in the match, you'll find out. So I want to be able to like knock off the Celesteela ASAP, and I really do expect the Celesteela to come in on the Excadrill. Instead, PCC just hard reads me going into like Torn on this play and clicks Volt Switch on my Torn, which is insane. Imagine Volt Switching Excadrill. It's like such a crazy play. It works out, and I have so much respect for him for making the play. But it's a crazy read on turn 9 that almost could have put me in a very daunting position because I have enough bulk on my Torn to live the Volt Switch into the Sandstorm chip. It's going to make me very low, like 3%, but I have enough bulk to do it, which is great. If, you know, that knockoff didn't crit, this probably would have been even a much safer switch in. I wouldn't be this low, right? But at the very least, I'm grateful Torn is alive, so I'll, you know, take what I can get. Now, obviously, I have to switch here. It's not a question. I need this Torn alive. It needs to be able to taunt the Necrozma, knock off the Celesteela, and if I can get it, you know, a bit healthier, since rocks aren't up, get it, you know, a bit higher health, that can also allow me to live the Accel Rock from Lycanroc and kill it with Superpower, like I said in the Teambuilder, was kind of the idea. So I think the Torn still has a ton of value here. I have a very easy switch in the form of Doublade. I'm not making too many crazy plays right now. Yes, he can predict that and go for Crunch, but like I said, physically defensive Doublade is just absolutely insane. So that is not even a 3-hit KO from Life Orb Crunch Doublade, or Life Orb Crunch Lycanroc, which is nuts. So I'm just going to double into Tyranitar here, basically because I want to cover another switch into potentially Necrozma or Celesteela. I think Necrozma is a potential switch in because maybe it wants to like activate weakness policy and start staying up on my Doublade. Same thing goes with Celesteela. Like Celesteela, since it's just revealed that it might be an offensive set, I definitely do want to make sure my Doublade is not in when that's happening, because Doublade is probably the mod on my team that is the most setup fodder for any of his setup. So I want to go into Tyranitar because A, it's quite expendable at this point. I don't need the Sand for Drill to succeed, because Drill can boost its speed on its own with Rapid Spin. And I kind of just feel like it's a worthwhile sack. And if PCZ goes into Necrozma or Celesteela, I can click Thunderwave, which I have in the set, which should be able to stop any kind of like Autotomize or Rock Polish or Dragon Dance shenanigans from either of those guys. Now, obviously, the Lycanroc just stays in, which again is a crazy play to me, because if I could have, you know, just attacked, then Lycanroc goes down. But I think also at the same time, like Reflect is up. Like, what are the odds I'm clicking Iron Head on Lycanroc? What are the odds I even have Iron Head? I don't know. It's very interesting, but he's calling all the plays I'm making, which is like really tough. Like, I'm pretty sure he's gotten every single play right, technically. I haven't necessarily made any crazy reads yet that have put me in good position. I think I just have a really good build this week that's like obviously keeping me up in terms of the numbers, but he's definitely making a lot of correct reads into the moves that I'm making. So he stays in, he clicks crunch on the expected Tyranitar switch in. I could go back into Doublade and try and be cheeky, but I'm not really going to do that. I'm just going to let Tyranitar go down. If instead of close combat it was like drill run, then that would have been really bad for Doublade. Plus, like, you know, it's risk versus reward, right? Like, how much do I truly need the 17% Tyranitar? Not very much. So I'm not going to really pivot around and play that game. I'm just going to go right into EXCADRILL and click Earthquake. Now, obviously, clicking Earthquake is a little suspect here because Celesteela is so obvious. But I don't know, he's just been making these crazy plays, like leaving Lycanroc in, or, you know, Volt switching against the drill. That makes me sort of think like maybe he doesn't want to risk taking any damage on Celesteela at all, because those were both instances where Celesteela could have come in and he chose to risk the mon he had in front. So my expectation was, by the way he was playing, he was just going to keep doing that and preserving the health on Steela. So my presumption was that Earthquake would be a safer play than it otherwise would look on paper, because it sounds like he's trying to like preserve Celesteela's health. But no, he just goes into Celesteela, which makes a lot of sense. And now he gets an even crazier play right when I go into my Rotom Wash and he goes for Seed Bomb. Now, this is a very interesting sequence because I'm thinking to myself, if you look at my opponent's team right now, Thunderbolt claims one. Kogo cannot take a Thunderbolt into a Hydro Pump at all, and Thunderbolt literally KOs every single mod on my opponent's team. If Necrozma comes in, 2 it KOs. Like, it's just, it's really solid looking for me. So Thunderbolt makes a lot of sense. However, I am very scared that this Celesteela is Choice Scarf. I didn't see any Choice Scarf Celesteelas in mocks, but I think this game and these plays have been so different from what I've seen that I'm sort of conditioned to expect the unexpected at this point, and think about the fact that, you know what, this might just be Scarf Celesteela to attempt to catch my Volt Switch here, kill me with Scarf Seed Bomb, and then, you know, win the game with Shell Smash Blastoise, which is quite feasible, right? So I don't want to be in that position. I think I just need to switch out into Latias, and the idea of switching out to Latias is I won't take a ton of damage from a Seed Bomb, and I definitely, you know, will not, how do I say it? I won't take a lot of damage from Seed Bomb, and if he switches into something like a Necrozma, or he switches into a Koko, like I'm Scarf Mystical Fire, I'm Scarf Trick, I have a bunch of different options to click with the Latias. So I go into Latias expecting to see either a Switch or a Seed Bomb, and I see neither of those things. I see an Autonomize, which is pretty crazy. An Autonomize is nuts, because to me it says, okay, this thing's either like super Spadef with Weakness Policy, or it's Wakanberry, right? But the issue is like, I don't know, like, it's an interesting like play to stay in, and I totally respect it, but I definitely just didn't expect it, but I do respect it. This puts me in a very, very tricky situation, because now I'm a Choice Scarf Latias. I do outspeed this Celesteela, but the way he stayed in, it makes me think, okay, this might be Weakness Policy, right? This might be a Weakness Policy Celesteela. I need to trick. I can't go for Mystical Fire and try into a KO and risk the fact that this is Weakness Policy. I need to trick it, lock it into a Choice Scarf, and see what it locks into. It locks into Heavy Slam, which does a ton of damage to my Latias. And now the great irony is that I was expecting a Scarf Celesteela, which made me make this play, and now I've just made it a Scarf Celesteela while taking all this damage on my team. So very, very frustrating few turns for me that were difficult to navigate. Thankfully, though, now I know that what this thing is locked into. Additionally, now I can, you know, whittle it down with enough damage, hopefully, to put it in range of a EXCADRILL victory, right? Because if I get a little bit chip on Blastoise, and then, you know, Celesteela locks into something, I mean, its last move is probably Earthquake, right? To hit EXCADRILL and Doublade, like, if it locks into Heavy Slam or Seed Bomb, I can actually use it as setup fodder for my drill, and then, you know, try and sweep. And hopefully, you know, with like the Rock Chip and stuff like that, +2 or +4 Rock Slide is gonna be in the correct range at some point against this Celesteela. So, point being, Choice Scarf makes it easier for EXCADRILL to potentially win. However, I did make this play because I feared Choice Scarf in the first place, and now I've just created what I feared. So we'll see what this ends up going with, or how this ends up going. But I do know it's locked in Heavy Slam, so Doublade is a safe switch for me. It's not going to do any damage at all. I'm going to go and pivot into my Rotom Wash, because obviously if it stays in Heavy Slams again for some reason, I do live that hit. But I expect to see probably either a Blastoise switch in, because at this point I'm pretty sure it's offensive Blastoise, so he, again, could try and use my Doublade for setup fodder, or he just goes into Koko to try and get his Reflect Up. Either way, I think Rotom Wash is a safe switch into either of those two things, because what it enables me to do is I live any hit, I live Dazzling Gleam, I live Volt Switch from Koko since I'm Assault Vest, and then obviously I live any hit from Blastoise and just threaten it with T-Bolt. So I decided just to stay in and click Hydro Pump, and I miss. Now this Hydro Pump would have KO'd this Tapu Koko. I'm max special attack modest. It would have KO'd this Tapu Koko. It sucks that I miss here, especially since I missed so much last game too, right? So that's quite unfortunate. However, I do live another hit, so I can try again to click Hydro. He goes for Volt Switch. Again, annoying that I missed it that first time, but Koko's not a big threat to my team since I have Excadrill around with leftovers, so I'm happy to click Hydro Pump against something else. In fact, I prefer to click Hydro Pump against something else, so let's do it. Celesteela comes in. This is amazing for me, because if this goes down, it means there's no Earthquake resist. I missed Hydro Pump again, which sucks. And now Rotom is so low, and I'm realizing at this point, like, if Blastoise gets in against, like, either, like, basically Doublade, or maybe even, like, an Excadrill that's not very boosted, and it clicks Shell Smash, I think I lose the game at this point, right? Like, Ice Beam kills Latias, and then Water Move kills literally everyone else. So I need to basically devote my Healing Wish on Latias to healing up this Rotom Wash so I don't lose to Shell Smash Blastoise. The issue with that is there's not a lot of things I can actually Healing Wish on. Can't really Healing Wish on Koko because it might just Dazzling Gleam and kill me. Can't Healing Wish on Lycanroc because it'll just kill me again. So it's basic, and I can't do it on Celesteela unless it's locked into not Heavy Slam, but Heavy Slam is kind of like the likely move that it would ever lock into against my team. So it's going to be tough to get a Healing Wish up on Rotom Wash, but at this point in the game, by turn 20, I'm saying to myself, I lose this game unless I can Healing Wish the Rotom. Just there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I need to Healing Wish Rotom back up because it will allow me to 2-hit KO on Necrozma, it'll allow me to beat the Blastoise if it's Shell Smash, it'll allow me to do a ton of damage to Celesteela and Koko and give me a better Heavy Slam resist. Yeah, it's just absolutely crucial that I do this. So I go into Doublade here on the Heavy Slam, which makes sense. I mean, it was either going to be Seed Bomb or Heavy Slam, right? And he could, at this point in the game, sack, you know, anything, and try and like get Blastoise in. So I'm basically attempting to pivot around so that he can really never safely go into Blastoise. Now, roosting here is very interesting because it gives me a free Sword Stance. Going hard into Blastoise, I guess, probably isn't a great play from his side of things because I can just Sword Stance here and like 2-hit KO with Earthquake, albeit I guess Shell Smash may have won from this point. So maybe that's a misplay on PZZ's side of things. But yeah, either way, he goes for Roost as I go for Sword Stance here. And I'm just going to keep boosting. I really just want to try and do as much damage as possible at this point. And if he's not going to go to his Blastoise hard, if he's going to try and, like, you know, pivot around before bringing Blastoise in, I'm going to use this opportunity to set up as much as possible. Now, here I have a choice. I can either Sword Stance again to basically ensure I KO this Necrozma even through Reflect, or I can just stay in an attack and try and 2-hit KO and take the damage whatever Necrozma is going to hit me with. And I decide to attack. Now, the objectively correct play with hindsight is to Sword Stance again and try and just KO the Necrozma, but more offensive Necrozmas died from here, and I just wanted to not take that damage with Excadrill, essentially. So I didn't Sword Stance again. There was also a universe where I Sword Stance again. You know, this Necrozma, if it was really fat, would live on a tiny roll, and then all of a sudden I would have taken like 2 Earthquakes or a knockoff into an Earthquake or something, and I think that was just too devastating of a possibility with, again, a Koko still existing. So I just want to take my damage here and not risk Drill dying, because Drill doesn't die in any one hit, but if I SD again and then Earthquake and it doesn't kill, or, yeah, you know, whatever, that situation, then I'm in a really bad spot. So I'm just going to Earthquake here. It doesn't kill, unfortunately, but you know, the Citrus Berry doesn't matter, and he ends up revealing Brick Break instead of Earthquake, which is really nice because it means that, yeah, I would have been better into the T-Tar, but it also means that I don't have to, word sentences, take as much damage as Earthquake would have done. Earthquake also would not have killed me, but it would put me much lower than this. So I am just going to click Earthquake again, claim my kill with Necrozma. There's nothing really he can go into safely since Celesteal is locked, and he's going to go Blastoise here. Now, again, let's talk about Shell Smash Blastoise, because I think this game looks really scary if this Blastoise can find an opportune moment to set up. If Blastoise clicks Shell Smash here, then it dies to Earthquake into Shadow Sneak from Doublade. So it's kind of a weird play for him to do it. Instead, maybe it makes more sense for him to just click Surf Raw, or maybe it makes sense, you know, for him to click Aqua Jet if he has Aqua Jet. That's another thing that I'm potentially thinking about, right? Plus, again, it could also be Fatstoise and not Shell Smash. So do I think that, you know, Shell Smash is possible? Yes. Do I think it's likely? Not as likely as him just raw attacking me. Because the other possible play is that if he's Shell Smash and I click Rapid Spin this turn, predicting the Shell Smash, then I will outspeed the next turn and kill it with Earthquake, and then he just outright loses the game, right? So there's a few situations where Shell Smashing is a, you know, high-risk, high-reward play. I don't think it's a play that PZZ is going to make here. And I'm looking at this, you know, I just said that I need to Healing Wish Rotom back up to win the game. This is my opportunity to do that, because if this Blastoise clicks basically Surf or Aqua Jet, I can go into my Latios, I'll outspeed this next turn, and I can Healing Wish the Rotom. So this is my opportunity back into this game. I think PZZ's been playing absolutely incredible and has been predicting it at so many different instances, so many different points, and this is my turn to call him going for a Surf and Healing Wish into the Rotom Wash, and this turn, the tides of the game change completely. I think from this point, every time before this point, PZZ was in a winning position. I think that a full health Rotom just annihilates a lot of his chances for victory here, because all of a sudden his main win con in, you know, Shell Smash Blastoise, you know, cannot beat this Rotom. His Lycanroc is very chipped and might die to Life Orb over time, and the Celesteal is tricked, right? So all of a sudden, PZZ doesn't really have a win con anymore, and I have resolved my lose con, and yeah, this puts me in a really solid position moving forward, which is really, really nice. But it really all hedged on predicting what that turn would be. There were so many different sequences this turn where I could have spun into Earthquake, or I could have just, you know, Earthquaked into Shadow Sneak, or I could have just switched out. If he hard predicted me to switch out and click Shell Smash there, I automatically lost the game. But I got the call right. Finally, after he got like a million calls right, I got this particular call right, and that was what was important. Now, the other interesting thing, obviously, which is a factor that I'm not aware of when I'm making these decisions, is that this Blastoise is Life Orb. This Blastoise being Life Orb is also, you know, makes this play make a lot more sense on his end, because if I click Earthquake and he kills me, you know, and he clicks Shell Smash, then the reality is that he's just going to die to Life Orb afterwards. So he wants to call me on a Rapid Spin or, you know, a Switch or something like that, and just attack and not lose all that health on Blastoise and then die to Life Orb Recoil. So there's a lot of different ways that turn could have played out, but it did play out in my favor, which is absolutely perfect. The Coco is going to come in. I'm going to click Healing Wish, like I said, go into Rotom Wash, and now I'm in a very, very solid position. I just go back into my Drill because it should beat this Coco. And the Stoy should be in range of +2 Earthquake as well. I just go for Earthquake here because if Celesteal comes in, I can, you know, go into Doublade, figure out what it locks into. I can kind of pivot around it. I'm not too worried about Celesteal coming in. I just want to click Earthquake to cover the possibility of Blastoise coming in, or cover the Roost, obviously, which I think was, or sorry, the Reflect, which I think was pretty obviously something he was looking to do. And this turn I get very greedy. I think the same correct play applies. I think I could just click Earthquake, but I end up clicking Swords Dance this turn. And yeah, I have to switch out into my Torn, take Close Combat. This is a very interesting turn, right? Because I could just go into my Doublade here, but I kind of feel like there's no risk in me going into Tornadus here, because according to my calc, there was only like one roll in which I died to this Close Combat. If he even went for Close Combat in the first place, I think it was possible he just would have gone for Crunch. Because if he Close Combats on my Doublade, then he doesn't kill my Doublade. I have to, like, he has to switch into an attack. So I think like the odds that he clicks close combat are not certain. The odds that he clicks crunch, maybe, likely, but it wouldn't kill the drill, right? So I don't know why he would click crunch in that moment. So I think CC is the most likely scenario because he doesn't really necessarily fear Doublade coming in, because he can pretty easily switch into Doublade. So I think CC makes a lot of sense. He just wants to attack what's in front of him. Torn will live this hit, but now he's obligated to click a Cell Rock or Sucker Punch. So I just go into my Doublade on that, on what I expect to be a Cell Rock or a Sucker Punch. I predict the Cell Rock, go into Doublade here, and he actually reveals that he's both. He's a Cell Rock and Sucker Punch, so very interesting stuff this week. But I am able to sneak it and kill it. Blastoise comes in. This is like a Hail Mary attempt, I think, on his end to Shell Smash here, but it doesn't work. Shadow Claw into Shadow Sneak will pick up the KO, and the rest of the game is basically me just pivoting around to make sure that rocks will slowly weaken Coco and Celesteela, mainly Celesteela, right? Because Celesteela can only switch in X number of times. And to be truly honest with you, I can make like most of these plays incorrectly and still be in a good position. Celesteela has limited number of rock switch-ins and cannot out-damage me in the number of switch-ins that it has, because every time it makes a wrong call and I go into Rotom Wash, I can click Volt Switch and reposition myself constantly, go back into Excadrill against the top of Coco, and force Celesteela in again, and it just will always end in Celesteela dying to rocks, evidently. So I can click Sword Stance here. I don't want to stay in and take like a random crit Earthquake, so I'm not going to stay in. I'm just going to go back into Torn, because I think, again, we can see Earthquake here, and especially now since I'm getting like regen recovery on my Torn, this is basically futile, because it means that not even like, Scarf Seed Bomb is going to win the game either. So this just ends up being sort of a slow death, and I think PZZ realizes that through the course of this end game, and actually I believe this turn we'll click GG, we'll click X, which is totally fair. Like, this game was lost. So this was a very interesting game because I actually think I was outplayed for most of it, but I think this is an example where I tend to call myself not a great player and a really great prepper, a really good team builder, I should say. And I think this game, more than many other games I played, really exemplifies that. I think PZZ outplayed me in a majority of this match. He just didn't get his win con in perhaps at the right opportune moment, but he got a lot of individual plays correctly. Nonetheless, the overall structure of my build, the Healing Wish to support Rotom, the defensive combination between Rotom and Excadrill, as well as the body press and small things like that, I think really came together to work, and that's what feels good in these team tours. So we end up being 5-0. I believe by the end of this week, it's just me, King L5, and iPro that are 5-0 in the entire tournament, and those are, for those who don't know, insane names. Like, those are names of basically Draft League legends, so it's really cool to be in the same, I guess, echelon of them in this tournament. We are the only Sword and Shield player who is in that category, which feels quite good as well. I remember at the start of my Skyhorse video, week 1, I said I really want to prove that I'm among one of the Sword and Shield greats. I really hope that we're on track to doing that at this point, because this is a very, very strong team tour performance, knock on wood. Hopefully it stays this way. But either way, like, if you told me, like, at the start of the season that I would finish the regular season 5-2, I'd be jumping for joy. And the fact that I'm 5-0 is crazy. So no matter how the rest of the season goes, I'm quite proud. But my team really counts on me to win these weeks, and I'm going to keep going with everything that I have to make sure that we get a victory, both the team, and make sure that I can pull out as many individual wins as I possibly can. So what happened with the overall week? Obviously, like I mentioned at the start of the video, our team was 2-2, 2 wins, 2 losses. We won again this week in 6-2 fashion, our most dominant win that we've had so far. Basically, our entire team won, I think, with the exception of, God, I don't even remember. I don't know. I straight up don't remember who lost, but a few people. Either way, it was 6-2 in our favor, so that puts us at 3-2. It puts us, I believe, in third place in the playoffs. We have to face the Phantom Thieves, who are also vying for playoffs. They're a little bit under us in the standings, but are a very good team. They were rated as one of the best teams on paper at the start of the season. And then we have to face Armory, who's currently second place. So we have a very, very tough next 2 weeks ahead of us, and it's going to be interesting to see how the season shakes out. But I've been really enjoying it so far, and I hope you all have too. I fully recognize this was a much, much longer game than previous games, so hopefully you're able to stick with it. But I really appreciate you all's support throughout the season. It's been really cool to see you all enjoying these in-depth videos, and like I said earlier, I think at the end of the season, whether that's after playoffs or after the regular season, depending on whether my team makes it or not, I'm going to try and do some kind of live stream that goes into detail about the team, goes into detail about every single team build, my thoughts on drafting, my thoughts on team tours and how to succeed in a team tour, and a bunch of different things that I'll try and cover in the live stream. But it's going to take some time because, like I mentioned, I'm currently in the process of moving, so that's going to come first, or trying to move, I should say. So that's going to come first, and then I'm also having some computer problems like I was a few months ago. If you saw random cuts in the video, that is because my computer kept shutting down while I was doing OBS, and that sucks. So shout out to JRicky for piecing those things together. If you made it to the end of this video, be sure to say thank you, JRicky, in the comments. And yeah, that's about it. See you all next week where we take on the Phantom Thieves. It's going to be a very, very exciting game. Cool. All right. Bye, everyone.